Girlfriend sees the selfie and breaks up with him. Katie sits impatiently on the sofa checking her cell phone every 5 minutes. It had been 2 hours since her boyfriend Ben had last spoken to her. Where was he? Her phone suddenly beeps and to her relief, it was a message from Ben. He sent a selfie of him in his car and Katie smiled to herself while butterflies fluttered around in her stomach. But then suddenly, Katie's smile turns upside down. She sits frozen in her tracks, having just noticed something strange about Ben's selfie. When she saw it, she felt her heart shatter. There was no coming back from this. No way. Katie Jackson had been in a relationship with Ben Jones for 4 years. Katie truly did love Ben, she was positive he was her soulmate, the man she planned to spend the rest of her life with. But this love-stricken girl had no idea what was coming to her. It was supposed to be an ordinary day for Katie, who was going around her best friend's house while Ben was off to the gym. But Katie's entire world was about to get turned upside down after receiving a selfie from the love of her life. Katie and Ben first met 4 years ago while at university. After a couple of weeks of awkward smiles and small talk, finally, Ben asked Katie out and she said yes. Katie was like a giddy schoolgirl. She truly fell head over heels for Ben. He was different from the other boys, or so she thought. 4 years after their first date and Katie and Ben were still happy together and going strong. The two had been moved in with one another and even spoke about starting a family. Ben was just the man for Katie. He was funny, kind, smart, and loyal. But Katie had no idea how wrong she was. Throughout their 4-year relationship, Ben and Katie hardly ever argued. They were too mature to act like children, instead, if either of them had a problem, they made sure to tell each other. On paper and in real life, their relationship was perfect. But all good things must come to an end, right? It was late in the evening when Katie received a phone call from her best friend Lily, who was in tears because of her own relationship problems. After hearing the news, as any best friend would, Katie planned to go over to Lily's house armed with ice cream, wine, and romantic comedy movies. She asked Ben to drop her off, but Katie had no idea what Ben was going to get up to while she was out. Although Katie couldn't relate to being heartbroken like Lily, she felt super sorry for her best friend. She vowed to make sure she would help her feel better. But Katie had no idea that in a matter of hours her own entire world would also be turned upside down. Ben drove Katie to Lily's house and dropped her off. He was planning to go to the gym and then do a spot of shopping in town. Katie got out of Ben's car and kissed her boyfriend goodbye before heading into Lily's house. She watched Ben drive away, not knowing what exactly he was up to. Katie and Lily had been watching their favorite rom-coms and eating ice cream for the past 2 hours. Katie had messaged Ben a few times to see if he was okay, but he hadn't replied. She thought he was probably busy at the gym, halfway through a workout. But she was so wrong. As the hour passed, Katie started to worry that something had happened to Ben. He still hadn't replied to her, and that was nearly 3 hours ago. She rang him, hoping he would pick up. But he didn't. Where was he? Was he hurt? Hundreds of questions flooded Katie's mind, but nothing could have prepared her for what was to happen next. Finally, Ben replied to Katie, and she swiftly put down her bowl of ice cream and picked up her phone the moment she heard it beep. She wiped her fingers before opening the message. But what she was about to see would tear her world in two. Katie opened the message from Ben. It was a selfie of him wearing sunglasses in his car. He looked super cute and straight away Katie felt butterflies in her stomach. But then, within a matter of moments, Katie suddenly noticed something strange about Ben's selfie. When she saw it, she felt sick to her stomach. Katie is frozen in her tracks. Was this some kind of joke that Ben was playing on her? But Katie didn't find this funny. Not one bit. Her mouth dropped wide open the moment she saw it in his selfie. How could he do this to her? How could he crush her heart in the palm of his hand like a cheap fortune cookie? There was no coming back from this. Quickly, Katie showed the selfie to Lily, who was just as lost for words. The two friends looked at each other before Katie burst into tears. How could he do this? She knew she had to find out the truth. She turned off the television, took a sip of wine, and called him, ready to confront him. You see, in the selfie that Ben took, a pair of legs could be seen in the reflection of his sunglasses, hanging out the window on the passenger side. But it wasn't Katie's legs. Katie was with Lily when the picture was taken. So who was Ben with? Katie gripped onto her cell phone as she waited for Ben to pick up the call. She could feel her blood boil while her heart broke into tiny pieces. He answered and she was ready to unleash her anger and humiliation. Katie was screaming down the phone, "Who are you with? Whose legs are those?" she yelled out. But Ben responded with mere silence. "Answer me." Katie screamed, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'm sorry," he replied, his voice as quiet as a mouse. He didn't even try to deny it. He didn't try to come up with an excuse. It was as if he was happy to be caught. Ben eventually came clean to Katie and revealed that he had been seeing another girl for the past month. Katie's entire world crumbled around her. How could he do this to her? She knew she wasn't going to stay around and she soon broke up with him. It took a while, but finally, Katie realized she was much better off without him, that's for sure.